the part that's really exciting to me about what the team has been working on for the last several years is this opportunity to really unlock the power of decentralization and programmability. The one-to-one asset backing and the ability to share revenue with the community is really exciting. This year especially has really illustrated the importance of proof of reserves on chain 24/7. And that's something that's sort of natively baked into the protocol. And combined with these safety mechanisms like default backstop protection is really what sets our tokens apart from other projects. Back in August, you may all remember a roadmap was released, and I think Smetty had written the blog post, and Soham and Thomas had walked everyone through that roadmap. I thought I'd just kind of check in a little bit on that and how we're thinking about the ecosystem. And I believe actually the roadmap was shared in Discord and on Twitter again last week. But yeah, 5 quick things to mention on the ecosystem. First one is, well, the protocol team is still working on the all clear for testing. That's really important milestone before we launch the EUSD R token with MobileCoin. We're really excited about that launch from MobileCoin. That's going to provide some really interesting ways for RSR holders to earn revenue on their holdings and supporting different R tokens in the ecosystem. So remain very bullish about the MobileCoin electronic dollar. The second thing on my list is we have a pretty thorough outreach right now to developers, protocols, and institutions through our hackathon and through business development efforts. Soham and Thomas are going to talk more about the hackathon in a second, so I will not steal that thunder, but it's going really well. The third thing on my list is the business development team is especially interested in assisting the development of a savings R token with folks from the community. We think this might be a 5 to 8% yield with proof of reserves on chain, and it's all in this useful, fungible stablecoin. The main question right now is which entrepreneur or company is going to lead the creation of this R token. And we're in talks with several parties. And if you're listening and you're interested to lead or help or know someone who would like to, please do just reach out to me directly here on Discord. That may in fact ultimately be the second R token. The fourth thing on my list is the community team. Sinatra and Smetty have been on a tear with new content. We have a quarterly newsletter that's going to be coming out in the next few weeks. Really excited about that. Lots of live events, such as today's Discord AMA, and I believe there are going to be at least 2 Twitter spaces this week. And there's been some really cool features of Reserve Protocol, both on CoinGecko and on stablecoins.wtf. And then next week is Stablecoin Week with Blockworks. So they're writing a number of content pieces around how they think about stablecoins and how different players fit in the ecosystem and how Reserve Protocol fits in the ecosystem. So we're really excited about that. Hope you'll all check that out. Last thing on the list for the ecosystem is we're developing our 2023 events and conferences strategy now, and also a grants program for 2023 that'll essentially be the follow-up to what we're doing right now with the hackathon. If you have any ideas or suggestions or experience that you want to lend or just share, please do. Just get in touch with me directly. Just DM me. And yeah, last thing I'll say is when I invested 4 years ago, I was really struck by the team's care for their big mission and fierce attention to detail. I'm super psyched to be a part of the team and to help manifest this full time. And not to be too woo-woo, but I think what's at stake is the spirit and integrity of money, which should be determined by the community, not political agendas and big tech. So thanks, everybody. Really excited. Hope to meet you all in our Discord and invite your friends to join us. Thanks, Sinatra.
Thank you, James. Wow, you really dropped the bomb there. There was so much to unpack, so much new things that you touched on. That's awesome. I do think we'll get the chance to unpack a couple of those things that you mentioned. But of course, James, so happy for you to join the team. I think I speak for the entire team when I say that. All right, before we go into more detail on those things, the structure that I want to follow is kind of see where we're at right now, what the current state after launch is, and then take another look into the near and the far future of the protocol. Something that's really on top of mind right now for the state of the project is the Gitcoin hackathon. You might have seen here in Discord, we've had a lot of chats with several developers, also content creators. Soham, I know you've been a leading role into that hackathon. Can you maybe reiterate for everyone here in the call what exactly the purpose of the hackathon is, what the current state of the hackathon is, and where we're going? Like, what are we trying to achieve with that, and when is that going to happen?
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks so much, Sinatra. So yeah, we're about a month into our Gitcoin hackathon, and with about 2 weeks left, we're really excited to provide an update for the whole community and to you guys to see how things are going. Just as a refresher, right, for anybody who's not familiar with the hackathon to begin with, we're hosting a Gitcoin hackathon where we have $250,000 up for grabs in prize money. We launched this hackathon with really the primary goals of one, to build out the Reserve ecosystem, and two, to really drive adoption for the Reserve protocol that obviously we launched at DevCon last month. In order to achieve these goals, we're really incentivizing bounties in three main categories. And I can kind of give a rundown of what those categories are and kind of where we're at with the current state of the hackathon. So the first kind of main category that we're going after is what we call the grand prize bounty. And this is really the best DeFi innovation on the Reserve platform. We're really excited about this one. It has $100,000 in prize money on the line, with $50,000 being the first prize. So definitely, a sizable chunk of prize money. And that's because, we're really focusing on the promotion of this bounty specifically. It's the one that we're most excited about. And really, at the end of the day, what the protocol is all about, right, is building these interesting R tokens and really coming up with interesting innovations using the Reserve platform. So right now we have 7 participants who are currently enrolled, and new people joining each week, which is really exciting to see. And from our end, we're definitely going to continue to focus on promoting this one specifically. As I mentioned, it's the one that we're the most excited about and what the protocol is all about. The second category within the bounties that we're going to be incentivizing and are incentivizing now is the collateral plugins. And really what we see the collateral plugins as, they're really the building blocks and money Legos for deployers to use to create their own R tokens, right? We have 3 main tiers of these collateral bounties. So for the first tier, these are our $7,000 bounties. These are really what we see as the marquee collateral plugins that we want implemented within the Reserve ecosystem. We have 6 of those right now, and we're very pleased to say that all 6 of those are being worked on right now. So very excited to see what people come up with there. On the second tier, these are our $3,000 bounties. And we're very excited to say that 90% of those are actually being worked on right now. So almost fully covered. And then our third tier, which is $1,500 bounties, over half of those are being worked on as well. So all in all, this pretty much culminates in over 30 collateral plugins right now being worked on. And the result of this is really going to be a lot more optionality for our token deployers in the future when it comes to designing and constructing their own unique R token. So very excited for the collateral plugin side of things. And then lastly, the last tier, the last category within that we're going to be incentivizing on the bounties is the content creation. And the goal of this is really to spread the word about Reserve through thoughtful content and really detailed research. We have over 20 active participants right now and active projects being worked on the content bounty side. And we're really excited to go through the submissions after the hackathon ends and see what people come up with. It's going to be really exciting to go through articles and videos that the whole community kind of comes up with. So where does that kind of leave us? Numbers wise, we have over 275 participants in the hackathon at the moment and over 80 projects being worked on. So we're super happy with, kind of the progress that's being made on the hackathon front. But at the same time, we do want to say that, we're not satisfied yet, right? There's 2 weeks left within the hackathon, and we really want to keep our foot on the gas. So from our perspective, we're going to continue to really focus on targeted promotion and marketing for the entire hackathon, and specifically our grand prize bounty. That's what we're going to do on our end. And maybe you guys in the community are asking, maybe how can you guys help out, right? And really the answer to that question is through referrals. So basically anyone and everyone that you guys as a community think could be, good participants within the hackathon, we really would appreciate if you guys could reach out to those people and tell them about the hackathon that we're having. This could be maybe friends that are Solidity developers or, DeFi nerds, financial engineers, that sort of thing, just like all of us. That would be really helpful, as well as maybe a company or a protocol that you think could use an R token. We'd love to talk to those people. We'd love to get those people involved in the hackathon in any way, shape, or form that we can. And lastly, it could be a content creator too. If you know a writer or a researcher, somebody who has a blog, maybe somebody who has a YouTube account or a YouTube following or something like that, we'd love to get those people involved as well. So anything that you guys can do to, help spread the word about the hackathon would definitely be much appreciated. Just rounding out with some key dates here. December 13th is when the hackathon officially ends, and we will have judging over the next few weeks after that. And, winners and prize money pretty much going to be paid out by the end of the first week of January. We're currently aiming for January 6th for, all the judging and prize money to get paid out. That's pretty much the full update on where we are with the hackathon. Happy to answer any questions. Kind of as James said, feel free to DM me or to tag me in the general chat, and I'll happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Soham. And let's say there's a developer or content creator in the audience or listening to the recording right now. After the hackathon, let's say someone is interested in working with Reserve on let's say a collateral plugin or a piece of content, but for some reason they don't really have the time now, but they might have the time in, let's say, a month or two. Will we continue to support that kind of community work, let's say, on a protocol, or is this only for this limited time during the hackathon?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very good question. I think, the focus is currently here now in the next 2 weeks on getting as much done as possible. And then once we actually evaluate and judge all the bounties and see what progress we've made after, the hackathon officially ends, we'll have a better idea of the things that we're going to continue to incentivize moving forward. That being said, we do anticipate, if everything gets completed here in the hackathon, we'll be ecstatic, right? That's really the main goal. And so it's something that we'll probably revisit after the hackathon, and we'll have a better detailed response in terms of what'll be available after the hackathon once we really find out where we stand.
I have a quick question as well, if you don't mind, on the hackathon, and maybe this is a question for Thomas. I'm curious to know, for the collateral plugins that are being written, do we have a plan in place already for how that code will be audited if our team thinks that it's legit, or is that something that's yet to be determined?
Yeah, so our plan right now is to audit it. The team itself will be doing auditing. And then we're considering a Code Arena hackathon in particular for this. What's a little interesting about the collateral plugins is each one requires such an in-depth knowledge of the DeFi protocol in question. And so we're still assessing what is the best way to get like a external party to look at all of these.
I see. Yeah.
Because like an individual auditing firm isn't likely to be an expert on every single DeFi protocol.
Right. It's like we almost need to talk to each protocol team and ask who most recently audited their protocol and see if they would look at it.
Exactly. And so what we're going to start with is our team doing an in-depth analysis on each one. And, I think I'll get more to this, but, we actually recently expanded this with the expansion and the size of the engineering team. We brought on some really senior DeFi engineers who've worked on a variety of different protocols across the landscape, and so we're excited to bring that experience on and get them involved in helping to bring that knowledge to these audits.
Awesome.
You said something really, really awesome, Thomas, which I think we should emphasize. How many new engineers did we hire?
Yeah, so we recently expanded the team. We brought on 2 very senior folks full time and one person part time, and we're excited to take this new skill and get these folks onboarded and up to speed, and we'll be we'll be sharing more in the coming months here, but we're really excited to have them on board and give Matt, Julian, and Taylor some help as they've been doing a lot of the heavy lifting on the protocol side for quite a while.
Yeah, and I wanted to emphasize that because just for the audience, that finding these kinds of profiles, these senior Solidity developers, is like the hardest thing. It's not easy though. So I'm really happy that we've hired those new people.
Yeah,
all right.
Just to add on that actually quickly, Sinatra, we are the recruiters that we've been working with have been surprised by our really high bar, and the reality is that we were very, very careful and took a ton of time to evaluate on the hiring process and work with folks, and we're really, really excited with where we ended up. So yeah, just to reemphasize that.
Amazing. All right, Soham, thank you so much for that overview of the hackathon. If anyone in the audience has any questions about that, a quick reminder: at the end of this community call, we'll have room for questions from the audience. You can either request to be a speaker, or you can put your question in the general chat, and we'll read it for you. Thomas, I want to continue with hearing your opinion on some things. In particular, some feedback that I got from the community, and I guess the question is twofold. So first of all, so I talk with a lot of people in the community, obviously, because I'm one of the community managers, and one opinion that I've been hearing a bunch in the past few days is that people feel like we're a bit in this awkward spot right now, because up to like for the past 2 years or so, everyone was always talking about the launch. And now the project is launched, and so now we're in this post-launch period, and people are telling me, so everyone's super happy that the protocol is launched, but we're in this period where there's no R tokens yet. There's an announcement of mobile coining, creating EUSD, but at this point, it's kind of, even if you look at register, there's not too much to see there yet, besides RSV. And I think a lot of people will find it valuable to hear your opinion on that as head of the platform. And I want to kind of put that in the same context as the all clear, because we've been talking about this important milestone in the project after launch, which is the all clear. So let me try to put this in one big question. Could you reiterate what the all clear is exactly, when we're going to get there, what it means exactly, and also maybe give some of your thoughts on the situation we're finding ourselves in. The protocol is launched, but no R tokens yet.
Sinatra, I'm not sure what you're talking about. Someone launched the Thomas test token, which is automatic $1 trillion market cap. I'm not sure. That actually wasn't me. Yeah, kidding aside. So a bit about what is the all clear milestone exactly. So I'm sure that I'm preaching to the choir a bit here, but the reality is that before significant amounts of funds go into something in the DeFi world and into smart contracts, it's really critical that those things are tested. And we've been one of our core design principles going into this project has really been around safety. And you can see that reflected in a variety of different ways, whether it's the backstop collateral mechanism, or the one-to-one asset backing, right? Like in terms of the features, but also the way that we've been approaching it, which is just to be hyper conservative, because, you know, like, why is that? It's because we're trying to we're trying to build something that can last for, you know, not just 6 months, not just a year, but really like a decade or decades. And in order to do something like that, you know, we just believe it's critical to put in the extra week, the extra month of, you know, really, really rigorous testing. And so that, you know, one of the last things, which we're actually finishing up right now, is something called fuzz testing, which is just automated testing that runs itself over a period of time continuously and goes through a variety of different scenarios to make sure that things don't break. And so, you know, after this is run for a certain amount of time, you can be sure that, you know, all of the different scenarios have been run, and, you know, all the different parameters have been stress tested. And so, you know, we're currently letting this run in some ways, getting ready to let it run in other ways. But once that's done, we'll just feel much more confident about encouraging others to put real amounts of capital behind it, you know, including ourselves. And so we're you know, we're aiming for the end of the year. That remains our goal. And so there's a couple things to finish up there. One is this fuzz testing to run. Another is we're going to do one final audit with a company called, we're talking to this company called C4, or Code Arena, or Code for Arena. I'm not exactly sure how you say it out loud, but it's you know, a very accelerated type of audit that is looks quite a bit like a hackathon. And, you know, so we're figuring out exactly the logistics of that right now. But, you know, we're aiming to run that before the end of the year, and then really be able to sign off and say we're excited for significant amount of funds to go behind this thing. So that, yeah, that's a bit about the all clear milestone. And I'll stop there. Sinatra, anything that would be helpful to expand on?
I think you covered the most important parts. For people in the audience, if you have questions, again, you can ask them at the end of this community call. Thomas, I know you're super focused on this current phase towards the all clear. Do you have? I wanted to ask, do you already have a framework or a set of goals for what comes after the all clear? Anything to say there?
Yeah, so after the all clear, the number one goal will transit. Well, it is right now, but in general, the thing that we're going to be thinking about is how do we grow the TVL how do we help assist the ecosystem to grow, which is probably measured with like the TVL of the overall protocol. For those of you that look at like DeFi Llama and look at like the funds under management by, you know, a set of smart contracts in the DeFi world, that will likely be that will likely continue to be, rather, the goal that we're aiming for, is to grow that. And so, like, how do we do that, right? We have to figure out what are the different things that are blocking growth. And so whether that's like our tokens being deployed, right? We want to work with our tokens, our token deployers, to help them, you know, understand what kind of things that they would need, and what kind of tools they might need, how they might need to be able to better govern or to understand what's happening, or whatever it is. You know, another set of things might be like, you know, like partnerships with other, you know, assisting with partnerships with other types of DeFi integrations. So like once there are our tokens, how do we get them adapted and more usable throughout the DeFi and CeFi world? And so whether that's, you know, assisting with incentivizing liquidity on decentralized exchanges like Curve, which we've talked about quite a bit, or you know, helping to work with you know, different helping to work with the deployers and various different places that, you know, might list different tokens to help them be listed and accessible to folks throughout the crypto and, you know, CeFi ecosystem as well. And so we're really trying to nail down, we're actually in a planning phase right now where we're brainstorming and like prioritizing different things of where to really lean into in Q1. But that's really how we'll be thinking about the overall framework is what is going to most contribute to growth in TVL. What is going to what are the things that might be blocking us from growing TVL, and what is the best order to do it in the least amount of effort.
Great. Thank you so much, Thomas, for that overview. Okay, let's hear from Nevin a bit. Nevin, people always love to hear from you as one of the co-founders, and not only on the state of the project itself, which obviously we're gonna talk about, but also on the state of the crypto world as a whole. And I wanted to start with a question for you there, because obviously we're in this. It almost feels like to me at least. I hope I'm not being too pessimistic, but it feels a bit post-apocalyptic after what has happened recently with FTX and stuff. So I kind of wanted to hear your thoughts. So could you, again, I'm going to ask a few questions. Could you give us your thoughts on the current state of the crypto market after what has happened with FTX? I'd also love for you to compare this with how big it is compared to, let's say, the Mt. Gox hack and the UST downfall. Is this worse? Is this better? Whatever. And then two more questions. Sorry about that. Do you have any idea what the reaction will be, for example, from regulators? And lastly, what has changed for the Reserve project after that? Has anything changed, and those kinds of things?
Thanks, Sinatra. It's a big question. I apologize for all the clearing in my throat that you might hear because I have a cold right now. But I'm happy to do my best to share my perspective on that. I think that in my personal opinion, I think the FTX situation is probably the worst of the disasters that have happened so far. And the reason for that is that it was such a huge violation of trust. If you look at the situation with Terra Luna, or even, as you mentioned, like the Mt. Gox hack, I think that those weren't really situations where everybody was so universally convinced that everything was fine. They were situations that were more contentious, where many people had doubts. And looking back, it's like, well, yeah, okay, we all should have sort of known that that was going to happen. Whereas in the FTX case, I don't think we should have known that that was going to happen. I think that if you have faith in humanity, you expect people not to do bullshit like that. And so it was, I think that just that, the effect of that enormous breach of trust from someone who is such a leader in the industry is going to be more damaging than really any of these disasters that have happened so far. When we think about what is the ultimate effect? Is it, even if it's the most damaging, is it going to mean the unraveling of the crypto industry, or all sorts of terrible regulation, or what's going to happen? I think that I definitely don't think that it's going to lead to the unraveling of the industry. I do think that probably some people who weren't really that committed to crypto or what they were doing in crypto, maybe they were there to make some money or because it was kind of fun or a fad, will leave. I think that there will be some, investors at funds or maybe people who are considering starting projects who decide, yeah, I'm going to go do something in tech or something elsewhere. And we saw this in 2018. Some projects that we were familiar with that actually switched from planning to do a crypto technology, and they just pivoted their projects and did something else. I think that is probably happening quietly in the background right now. And that's happening because the overall reputation of crypto in the world is it's at a very low point as a result of this. There are many people out there who already think that crypto is 100% a scam, and this is just lending credence to that view. And then there's many people who are kind of on the edge, who are like, well, there's some scams, but there's a lot of good stuff. And this pushes you in the direction of like, well, okay, maybe we never should have trusted it, and maybe this all a scam. And so, but I think that okay, so one thing that I think is really important to note here is that, it's not true that crypto is all a scam. And something that I was talking about with a friend the other day, and that I'm hoping we can work on and make progress on, is trying to find a way to finally explain to the broader world, to people in the traditional establishment, the fact that there is real stuff happening in crypto that is pretty important and is important to protect. And everyone who's in crypto who really pays attention, they kind of know this. They see the things that a few projects are doing that are really meaningful. But if you're Warren Buffett, for example, you don't know what's happening in crypto. You just look at it from the outside, and you see all of the sketchiness and and all the crazy volatility, and you see a lot of the stuff that makes headlines that is a scam. And so I think there's a lot of people in the world who are very smart people, very well-meaning people, who don't really understand what's happening at the sort of ideological core of crypto. And so I'm hoping that over the next year, we, and maybe working with others, can manage to actually change that understanding, not just in the industry, but outside of the industry. But I also think that there's this extremely powerful force that propels the overall crypto sort of more speculative phenomenon forward, which is people's desire for free money, right? And so, everybody wants free money. I want free money. Who doesn't want free money? And so, because of that persistent desire for free money, I think no matter how low Bitcoin goes or other crypto assets go in the wake of disasters like this, the fundamental reason for a lot of the infrastructure in the crypto industry, which is to serve people's desire to speculate on those sorts of things, those fundamentals really don't get shaken. People might have different levels of trust or different levels of interest in where they engage in trading activities and so on, but I really don't think that that's going to go away. And so the more speculative part of crypto, which is the bigger part right now, I think is just going to continue barreling forward, regardless of whether there's new regulations, which I'm sure there will be, or new negative opinions about crypto in the broader world, which of course there are. That none of that is powerful enough, I think, to stop the fundamental thing that has caused the massive amount of volatility of crypto assets up and down so far. So I personally think that that will continue, and because of that, there'll continue to be a lot of capital and talent in the space doing various different things. And then obviously, the projects like Reserve, of course, and many others that are deeply committed to some particular purpose, as long as they don't run out of capital, they'll continue doing their thing as well. So I do think that while this is a dark time, I don't really think it's going to end up looking or feeling all that different in the rearview mirror compared to the 2018, 2019 bear market. I think in the future, institutions will be rebuilt and capital will flow in again. And so I do anticipate that the overall path of the industry is not actually fundamentally shaken by these events. On the question of regulation, I personally haven't been watching very closely. Back after Terra Luna, I went and took a closer look at what was happening in DC with regulations, and I kind of had a beat on it at that point, but right now I don't. So I don't know the details of what's unfolding at the moment. I think that generally there's an external perception that events like this happen and there's like an immediate response and like legislation would be drafted in an immediate way. But generally these bills, even the ones that, most of them never get passed, and then the ones that do get passed take 3 to 4 years to actually get to maturity usually. So I do think that these events will have an impact on those conversations and ultimately will have some impact on the regulations, but it's going to play out over the course of many years. It's not going to be something where we can look and say, well, that language got into that bill, in 2022 as a direct reaction. It's going to be more like, this is just part of the overall conversation that the industry groups have to have with policymakers in DC and in other countries, equivalent sorts of conversations that ultimately shape regulations. So I think it's unfortunate that this happened, and I think there is a risk, like everyone's worried about, that it'll cause some sort of overly strict or reactionary regulations. But in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't cause me to worry all that much. And then I guess, okay, sorry, I've been rambling for a while, but you did, I think, ask, how does it affect reserve? And the answer is pretty much it doesn't. It's as we mentioned on Twitter, we took a small financial loss, but it wasn't meaningful. I've been very upset personally at Sam and the team for everything that happened, and just like I think everyone in the industry is. But in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really change our plans. It's not like this is causing us to reorient on how we're approaching DeFi or how the protocol is meant to work in the long term or anything like that. And those kinds of changes can be caused by big things like this. For example, I recently had a chance to hang out with someone who's part of the Solo project, and they mentioned that they pretty significantly restructured the way that their stablecoin worked in response to the Terra Luna collapse, because they sort of saw those market dynamics play out and decided to shift the way Solo works to be significantly less rhythmic. Well, in this case, there's really no learning like that. Like everything that's happened, that's fallen apart this entire year in the crypto market, are risks that we either contemplated or didn't contemplate, but really don't bear on the way that reserve works. And so we just continue to feel pretty confident about the way that things are structured. I will say that on the, one more thing that's happening in the industry that I think will affect the RPay team and the way that RPay is built out is that a lot of financial service providers that are outside of the crypto industry have suddenly gotten cold feet and become more skeptical and careful about dealing with crypto companies as a result of the FTX situation. So, I know that several conversations that the ARPA team has been having have gotten much more difficult with some financial providers that they were planning to integrate with. And we've heard the same from other teams. And so I think basically we just went back in time 3 years to how skeptical everyone was a few years ago. And it's going to take another year or so for people to warm back up. And in the meantime, crypto platforms are going to have, higher fees that they have to pay to these other service providers to accommodate that risk that they perceive, and in some cases just less access. And so it's going to slow down the process of the more sort of centralized company-based crypto infrastructure development that's happening in the space. So that'll be unfortunate, but I do think that the trust and momentum will eventually return on that front. So that's my take.
Thank you, Nevin. Thomas, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I wanted to add two quick things. One is something that I think was really interesting and really reinforced the need for something like our tokens that happened was due to some market instability, we Reserve, as the governors of RSV, opted to update the basket. And I think what's really interesting about this is the fact that we were able to do it without losing the network effects that RSV already has, right? for instance, the RPay app didn't need to like integrate a new thing. It just continued working behind the scenes while this update happened. And in the future with R tokens, if an R token opts to update its basket and change the collateral backing, as the protocol goes through that process, and after governance approves the changes and the protocol makes the trades, the network effects that are already achieved by that thing don't need to be lost, right? And I think that network effects in particular are super, super important for something like a currency, right? Like money is only as useful as where it can be used. And so the network effects of like people already knowing it, people already being able to use it in certain ways, people already having like personal workflows as well as businesses having things integrated like code-wise, don't need to be re-achieved for something if it needs to make any types of changes. The other thing, Nevin really briefly touched on this, but I really wanted to hone in on it, is that DeFi, throughout all of the things that happened over the last couple of weeks, not only did DeFi not really break in a meaningful way, and when I say DeFi, I mean like the lending protocols and the trading, the decentralized, the DEXs, like those continue to operate. And in fact, we actually saw like all-time high volumes on many of the DEXs. Like why is that? And at the end of the day, it's because those things require people to self-custody, and it requires loans to be fairly transparent in their nature, like in pseudonymous ways. And in fact, with the collapse of Alameda and FTX, we saw that on those cap tables, the people who were paid back first were the DeFi protocols, because there's actually no way to get the collateral back from one of those loans without repaying the smart contract, the loan. And so, the first FTT that was paid back, or rather, the first collateralized loan with FTT that was paid back was the Abracadabra one, because they knew that like if they didn't pay it back, there was no way out of that situation. And it's really highlighting one of the benefits of DeFi. And related to this, like what happened over the last 6 months is we saw a variety of different folks chasing yield, whether it was retail chasing yield at places like BlockFi, et cetera, with these really advertised high rates. And then as a result, institutions had to chase even higher yield in order to be able to pay out that yield to the retail. And this, when it blew up is when people were, making loans on trust or making loans on bad collateral or things of that nature. And in DeFi, like that hasn't really happened. It's happened in a very small way. And there's been some stress testing for anyone that's been following the DeFi drama recently. But protocols have adapted and updated and transparently changed their lending practices to only become safer over time. And so, like this chase for yield resulted in a lot of these firms blowing up. And what's really interesting about something like Reserve is that one of the things that really made us sad about this whole thing is that it like weirdly fixes all of the problems that happen, right? Like a stable coin that, a yield-bearing stable coin that is backed by very transparent DeFi lending or DeFi liquidity provisioning that generates trading fees. Like those types of things would make it so that people can actually chase yield, but know exactly what they're getting into, exactly how that yield is being generated, exactly where it's being generated, and like that it's legitimate yield and it isn't actually just like essentially like the cost of acquisition marketing cost that someone like Anchor was paying out or BlockFi was paying out, et cetera. And so it was, the last couple of weeks, it was, one thing that was really sad for us is knowing that the Reserve protocol offered a, potential solution and potential path forward that would have prevented a lot of this. So that was a potentially extended quick edition. Sinatra.
I do have to add one more thing on top of that, which is like I thank you for pointing out the change to RSV. I forgot to mention that. It's like definitely something that is a bit different and prompted by all this. And it's interesting because for like years, people would ask, well, what's the point of RSV? Why not just have like USDC or DAI or something as the stablecoin of this app? And, in a sense, it's a legitimate question. It's like, well, why have this other token that's just a basket of other stablecoins? And we always try to explain, like, well, it's because we don't want to be dependent on any particular issuer. We want to be able to rotate those out. There are possible future circumstances where that would start to matter. And it's just very hard for people to really take that seriously and like think ahead on those sorts of things. And I think it kind of helps, like the fact that that's finally becoming relevant. We finally have actually made that change, and it's very elegant and useful that we were able to do that. It sort of highlights the way that this project works, the way that the people behind it think, and the way we approach things. Where like everything is sort of like painfully slow that we do. It's painful for me too, like how slow the project has been up until now. But it has been because we're super carefully thinking through a lot of these different things in advance. It's like with the Terra Luna blow up, it's like, well, we like literally told you so. And then with this approach to our tokens where things can be swapped out, it's like, yep, now people can start to see why that would be relevant. And so I think that anyway, I hate to say I told you so, but I just wanted to bring that up because I think over the course of time, as more and more things crumble and fall apart, because of risks that people are kind of pretending right there, my hope is that the thing that we're building is so solid that will just never happen. And it will just continue to be more and more desirable to use something that's solid and trustworthy. And so I hope that the protocol and RPay as a financial platform end up offering that safety to people over time.
Thanks, Nevin. Thank you for that addition. I think it was very valuable for people to know. We have a couple minutes left in this call. So let's prioritize people that want to ask questions themselves on stage. So please request to be a speaker if you have a question. If not, we'll see if there's time for any questions in the audience, in the chat. While we wait for people to request, Nevin, a quick another question that I'm sure a lot of people are wondering about, more practical. Now that the protocol has launched, what does your day-to-day look like? What is your main focus point?
Yeah, well, recently it's kind of been a little bit of everything and a bunch of sort of boring administrative things in the background. But yeah, I've been, I work with the governance research team a little bit every week to help keep their momentum, and yeah, a bunch of boring stuff, working with the RPay side of the team on a corporate structuring exercise we're doing with our legal entities and that sort of thing. Yeah, helping the team make decisions about capital allocation, in the current market conditions. We're sort of scared to put our money anywhere and need to be very careful with the treasury. So we've made some decisions about moving assets around and who to trust, and we're doing more research on that side of things. So yeah, really kind of just boring background fundamentals at the moment. The thing that I'm excited to start focusing on pretty soon is recruiting, actually. Which is something, it's kind of silly to say that I would start focusing on recruiting, because obviously I've been focused on it in some sense the entire time. But up until this point in the project, I've always been very occupied with direct execution of some piece or another. And, we've reached a point where we have, we've sort of reached this milestone, and we have excellent team members in place for all of the different functions that we're executing on. And so it's kind of because of that I don't have a simple answer to that question. There's not one main project that I'm working on right now, precisely because we have people covering all of the main areas, and I'm not needed to be that directly involved. And so I'm excited to get to spend some time more deeply considering how should the reserve, really how should the asset-backed currency revolution overall, approach building momentum and recruiting people over the next, say, 5 years. And so I don't have a clear answer to that yet, but that's the next big topic that I'm excited to focus on.
Great, thank you. Since we have a few minutes left, let's do two questions from the chat. I'm not sure. I think it might have been Nevin that's best suited to answer these, or not, because one of them is related to RPay. Yelmer asks. So for context, there's been some news that the RPay app has been limiting new users in a certain area. Yelmer is asking, when are there plans to open it up again, and when is that happening, or when is the community going to hear more about that?
Yeah, there's not a particular timeline set, and I believe the RPay team intends to communicate more about that to the to RPay users and also to the broader community in about 2 weeks. So I think I'm going to leave it to them to communicate that, because they want to make sure that they explain in as clear as way possible. So I'm going to leave it to them to answer that question, and it should be in about 2 weeks from now.
Okay, great. Well, at least we know when the people will receive an update on that. So I hope that answers your question, Yeller. And then let's do a final one. Someone is asking, there's been some news about a digital currency group maybe being included in the contagion of the FTX downfall after Genesis has been going down. Do we know more about that? What could be the risk if there would be something with digital currency group? Or would there be risk for Reserve? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I mean, first off, there wouldn't really be any risk for Reserve. We don't have any of our assets with, any of the digital currency group companies. They are obviously an investor, and I hope that there isn't, anything wrong that's gonna make it to the core of DCG, because they've been a very helpful group. I think they're a very helpful group for the industry overall. Just earlier today, I was messaging with the DCG founders Telegram channel, asking, for advice on something, and everyone's very responsive. Like, I hope that the DCG empire doesn't really take a hit from this. But if it does, that's not really an issue for Reserve, other than they're a helpful ally to us. And we hope that they don't have any problems. We have heard from them directly. They've written, a letter to their portfolio companies, and as best I can tell, it is legitimately the case that, if the lending business fails on the Genesis side of things, that won't really end up taking down DCG overall. You can never be sure in moments like this, because, often it's like people are publicly saying that everything's fine until the last possible second. So maybe there's something we don't know. But as best I can tell, they probably have managed their risk well internally. We'll see how that actually plays out. But either way, Reserve is not particularly exposed.
Thank you, Nevin. I think people will appreciate your thoughts on it. Sometimes people they don't know who to trust in this.
No. I mean, I get that. I totally get that.
And they want to have, I don't know, some insights on that. And Felipe says thanks, so I think he appreciates it too. All right, unfortunately we're out of time, but I see that Thomas is already answering some questions in general chat. Thank you, Thomas. So if anyone else has questions, please put them in general chat, and I'll ask Thomas to answer them. No, Thomas, I'm gonna let you go through your next meeting, or ask anyone else to help out. So put them in chat. Thank you all so much for being here. One last thing I want to mention: we have another Twitter space on Thursday with 3 different protocols that are working on tokenizing real-world assets, and we're going to talk about what they're doing and how that all integrates into Reserve's long-term goals. So very exciting talk. Make sure to be there. You can figure out when it is on our Twitter page. The session is also recorded. I'll share the recording on one of the channels, so you can re-listen to it later on. Again, thanks everyone from the Reserve team. Thanks everyone in the audience for joining, and I hope to see you during the next community call. Thanks everyone.
Sinatra. See you guys later.
See ya.